Hi all. So my next film is Darkman, starring Liam Neeson. Again, I think this was an '89 film. Don't quote me on that one. '89, maybe '90, very early '90s. The story revolves around Peyton Westlake, a scientist who is trying to create a synthetic type of skin so that burn victims have a way of living a normal life without having to look at all their marks and such. His girlfriend at the time is a lawyer. I think she's a lawyer. And she comes across a document that could incriminate this guy, a very sort of powerful bloke. And for reasons that don't make sense, because it was with her at her place at the time, it ends up being at Peyton's lab, and a kind of drug dealer guy by the name of Durant and his team come in and basically want a bit of paper, and they kill the lab assistant, and then they effectively they try to kill him, and it almost works. Like, for instance, both his hands get completely destroyed, and then they dunk his head into the liquid plastic stuff, and then they blow up the lab. Now, they think that they've killed him, but as it turns out, they haven't. They've only managed to succeed in giving him kind of 60% burns over his body, his hands and face being the worst part. The doctor at the hospital is... she played Alex in American Werewolf from London, and she was one of the committee on what was it? The Avengers, the first one, Jenny Agutter. And they did a thing called the Ragnar technique, where they basically sever the connection for pain stimulation to the brain. And by this point, Peyton has just snapped. He's gone. He's not insane though. That's the thing. He's just lost, I suppose is the best way to explain it. And he escapes the hospital and then goes to try and find Julie, but bearing in mind he's dressed completely in bandages, so he looks like a walking mummy. And he finds her, but she doesn't recognise who he is, because obviously the bandages, and he can't really talk that well because he hasn't got any lips. So he's kind of like that sort of idea. Again, picture the description to the film is below. And he tries to reclaim his work and his life, and bit by bit he realizes that it won't be the same, but he's kind of hoping out on the fact that it will be, but unfortunately it doesn't. That's the spoiler. He then finds out that Durant and his team are alive, so he goes and he tracks them down one by one, whilst making masks of each one of the team, and he kills them. Not kills them himself. I mean, he kills personally 3 of them, but the others are all killed off by Durant and his other teammates, or just by other people. It depends. Then obviously after a while, Peyton meets up with Julie, who's his girlfriend, and he's trying to explain to her that he's not quite right, but he needs time, and he needs her to be patient, but she's kind of like, no, I need you back in my life. He's like, you're right. But everything quickly falls to pot when they're at the fair, and the guy who's doing the attraction that they're on at the time just won't. He basically accuses Peyton of cheating. It's the old Tin Can Alley type thing. Peyton loses it, breaks the guy's fingers, and then runs off because his face is bubbling. But after 99 minutes, the synthetic skin is effectively allergic to UV, and he runs back to his lair, basically. And the mask melts, and then Judy gets picked up, and he chases after her, etc., etc. Liam Neeson plays the title character. He is on my list of 3 OAP actors that you don't muck with. The third being an empty slot at the moment. The other one being Edward James Olmos. Just because they will go, here's your butt, hand it back. He plays this character very, very well. I mean, to see how unhinged this character is. If you read the book, I haven't read it for a long time, but from what I remember, there's a scene where these guys go to mug Peyton, and because he's got no skin or flesh on his hands, it's primarily just bone and whatever's held on it together. One pulls out a knife and he goes to stab him, so he grabs the blade. It doesn't hurt him, and he just says, "Run if you want to live." And it's because Darkman is kind of like his anger personified now, and it's so hard for him to control his temper and his mood that he almost kills these people, and they do see his face. So for instance, this part is still skin. He's got no hair, but all this half is just burnt. He's got no lips, just so you can see his teeth all the time, and it's completely charred. He does actually look like a walking mummy. His hands are all split open on the top, so you can see the bone underneath. It's the only stupid thing, and I know it's a film and all that sort of stuff, but you can't think, how am I? Here's an example. Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight, Dark Knight, when he has a meeting with Commissioner Gordon, and Harvey is talking normally. Now, bear in mind, obviously he's got it split down in his face, but it's kind of like, how am I supposed to talk? I've only got half a face, and that's actually on how it should have ended for that one. I'll see if I know where that is, so I'll put that on, and that bit will explain that as well. They did do 2 other films starring Arnold Vosloo as Payne Westlake, but they were just nowhere near as good. I think the third one, in fact, I think both were straight to film. This is when VHS was still out, for those of you who remember that. Again, very good film. You do feel sorry for Peyton, but obviously he does come to terms with it in the end, and that's about it really. So the next film I'm going to be doing is Kingsman 1 and 2, so back in a bit.